Hello, I'm Dave, and welcome back to a Giant Slayers Leadership Focus. We've been studying and talking about on these blogs a study from John Maxwell and Jim Dornan's book, Becoming a Person of Influence. This week's lesson is an influencer understands other people. You know, I got this book a few years back, and I actually began to read it, and I began to quiz my wife about some things in here I needed to change. And I used a post-it marker in this book, and I read it 2 or 3 times, and I actually used that post-it note as a bookmarker in the following books for a few years, because this thing had so much meat in it, so many things I wanted to apply. I wanted to remember them. So when she told me some things that she saw in me that I can improve in, that came out of this book, I began to apply them immediately. Now, I wasn't perfect, but I was conscious of them. And looking back now, I'm doing some mastermind group studies, and I've got some experience now to teach from. And I've realized that this book has made a major difference in my life. And not only in my life, but in the lives of those I am trying to actually influence. So it's all been positive. It's been good. So get the book. Read the book. Later on, I'll be doing some mastermind studies online. If you're local, we'll get you signed up to do one around here. But in the meantime, let me share some tips from this chapter that will kickstart your learning and maybe help you right off the bat. So you might want to take a few notes with this. First off, let me tell you a little story about how influence works. A young mother was doing laundry one day, and she slipped out the back door to hang some laundry on the line. And when she went to go back in the house, she realized that her 4-year-old had locked her in the house. No amount of pleading or begging or anything would get that 4-year-old to open that door. But finally it dawned on her, and she said, "Oh no, you've locked yourself in the house." And immediately that child unlocked that door. You see, she found the key. She understood how a 4-year-old thinks. They don't want to get locked up anywhere. So, funny little story, but it's got some truth and some meaning to it. Stephen Covey, some years back, had wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the things that he said were key was that we should always seek to understand before seeking to be understood. And that takes intentionality, because our nature is we want other people to understand me. We sometimes feel that way or think that way. People just don't get me. If they could understand, and that's, we find struggles in that area, but there are ways to overcome that. Now, I want to share some reasons why people fail to understand others. And the first reason is, and it's the granddaddy of all, is fear. Anything that we fear and don't understand, we either reject or attack. And we think back through human history of wars and some major misunderstandings with people, with whether it's racial, ethnic, financial, or whatever. Things that we're afraid of, we attack. So fear, if others fear us, they won't embrace us. They'll never get to understand us. So sometimes we have to figure out a way to understand them so we can make that connection. The next thing is self-centeredness, and it's a fruit from fear. But we were born selfish. You can go back as a child and you look at most children. Most children are not naturally generous, and they don't like to share. We have to teach them. It's all about me and mine and I when we're little children. But you know, the sad thing is sometimes we grow up with that same feeling and characteristics we carry into our life, and which on a subconscious level we may not be aware of it, but I promise you others are aware of it. The next thing is the failure to appreciate the differences in people. Now, Abraham Lincoln, when he won the presidency, he did something that no one had ever done before. He actually hired those that others would consider his enemies, people who ran against him, people who opposed him, people who tore him down in the press and in the public. And he put those people in his cabinet for a reason, because he really wanted to hear their perspective and try to understand why they were thinking the way they were thinking, so he could make the best decisions and plans for the people, because he realized that those people had influence, and he had to understand why they thought the way they thought. So that's something. So maybe if you're a CEO or an executive, or you're putting a team together, think about it. Are you mature enough to go and bring on your enemies and ask them to sit on a cabinet with you? Not so you can manipulate them or control them or win them to your way, but so maybe that you can understand why they think the way they think. The next thing that causes us to fail to understand people is not appreciating the similarities. Now, that's easy to gravitate toward people who are like us, similar personalities, like to do some of the same things, or maybe in our own age group. But people who are different than us, they have similarities to us too. And some of those things are they have hopes, they have dreams, they have fears, they have doubts, they have emotions. So we're all alike in that we do share those things. So if we can understand how to relate and connect with people on those levels, then we can appreciate the similarities that we have and maybe work past those differences. Here's some things that we should understand about others. There's 5 of them. First off is everybody wants to be somebody. Now think about that for a moment. Everybody wants to be somebody. They want to know that they matter. I don't think there's anybody on the planet that doesn't want to be significant and know that their life matters. The second thing is nobody cares about how much we know until they know how much we care. We can be the most talented, the most experienced, the most trained and educated. But if we don't take time to understand those that we're relating with, those things can actually be detrimental to us. They can resent those things. They can resent us because we are that way and because they feel that we believe we're better than they are. The next thing is everybody needs somebody. No one's an island. No one ever achieved anything significant by themselves. And so when we see someone who's trying to go it alone, if we can build a connection with them, maybe we can help them succeed and understand they can't make it alone. The next thing is everybody can be somebody when somebody believes in them and has faith in them. Now in the previous chapter, we talked about having faith in people and how some people don't have faith in themselves. Sometimes somebody has to come alongside them and have faith in them so they can begin to have faith in themselves. So remember that. Anybody who helps somebody influences a lot of bodies, good or bad. If we do something to someone or for someone, it's not going to only impact that person. It's going to impact the people that they have influence with and connection with. So the good things we can do in people can get multiplied if we are intentional. Now think about this in the retail business. One of the best marketing tools that a retail business has is word of mouth. Now no one wants negative press and negative word of mouth, but it gets around. The same goes with good service and great service. And there's some stories in this chapter here about Nordstrom and how that they go the extra mile and how they will even sometimes bring it to your house. Don't have to, but they choose to because they want to go that extra mile and word gets around. That's how I learned about Nordstrom. Didn't really know who they were until I heard about their customer service. Now, we can choose to understand others when we do 3 things. First off is choose to see the other person's perspective. We got to disengage from our world, our thoughts, and our beliefs for a little while. I'm not saying cast them away, but if we're secure in them, we can put them down for just a little bit and get into this other person's world and listen to their heart and to their mind. The next thing is we should have empathy. Funny little story in the book about a preacher and a young man. A young man was in a neighboring town and his house had just got destroyed by a tornado, and he saw the preacher and he said, "Preacher," he said, "something bad's happened." He said, "My house got blown away in this tornado." And the preacher hadn't been home yet, but he told the young man, he said, "I've been trying to tell you for years you needed to straighten your life out, that sin was going to have judgment. I'm sorry, but I tried to tell you." And the young man said, "Well, preacher, your house got blown away too." And after a brief pause, the preacher said, "Oh, the Lord works in mysterious ways, doesn't he?" So we can see how our perspective changes when things land in our lap. So we have to appreciate, not be judgmental. That's one of the things we can do sometimes and to people, and we judge them unintentionally or subconsciously when we say things like that, but it happens. So we have to keep our minds open and have empathy. All right, the third thing is have a positive attitude about others. Now, if we are positive about most people and we have some people we're not so positive about, and especially if we voice those things about those people, and I'm not saying we have to agree with everyone or like what people do, but if we believe in people in general that have the ability to change and improve as a whole, then we have to learn how to respect all peoples. Because if we don't, if we have negative feelings and thoughts and ideas and words about other people, the people that we are trying to have a positive influence, they're going to pick up on that. They're going to realize, hey, you're kind of judgmental, that you're kind of closed-minded in this area. And maybe they might even have a relationship with that person that you have a negative attitude towards. So we got to work and strive to have a positive attitude toward all people. Now, we deal with behaviors, but we don't deal with people. We love people, We have respect for people. We have a positive attitude toward people. But it doesn't mean we don't deal with behavior. So let's not confuse that. I'm not saying that we don't deal with things, but we always have a positive attitude and hope that things will work out for the best. Now, Zig Ziglar said many years back, he said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And there's even scriptures in the Bible that talk about it, the one about reaping and sowing, and I think there's one in Ephesians that says that whatever you do for others, God will do for you. So if you want people to understand you, if you want them to realize, hey, you've got some great ideas and you've got great motives and you're just trying to help, then seek to understand the other people first. It goes against our human nature. We want people to understand us first and get behind us and follow us, but they're not going to until we get in their world and understand them first. And that's what a leader does. A leader goes first. So I hope you've enjoyed the lesson today. Be sure to pick you up a copy of this book. I'm not trying to sell you the book. That's the last thing I'm doing on here today. I'm trying to sell you on the idea that you're an influencer and you can become a better influencer by applying the principles that's in this book. So, in the meantime, go to my website, GiantSlayerConsultants.com. Sign up for my free newsletter. You'll start receiving this video blog in your email. You just have to click on. I've got some resources. Got a lot of things coming up too that I'm going to be putting on there. I'm going to be putting a speaking course on there, a lot of John Maxwell's courses on there. I've got some other courses I'm going to put on there so I can stay connected to you, to add value to you, because that's my goal. My hope, my passion, my dream, and my purpose is to add value to other people. So, in the meantime, have a great week. Go seek to understand before seeking to be understood and be a positive influencer. And I'll see you next time. Have a great week.